Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I thought tonight, it's Sunday night, I'm recording this, and I thought maybe it'd be good to show you what's going to happen in the upcoming week in our two houses, the Senate and the House. And these are the hearings and things that they will be doing. So, to start out with, we have the Senate, and I apologize, this takes up a huge amount of space because I had to bump it up so you can see what's here. But there's lots of different committees who are going to be meeting, and you have the Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry. They're going to be doing some different things. And really, I'm going to show you this so that if there's something that stands out to you that you're particularly interested in, it'd be good for you to, keep up on that. And, we all have such different interests and different skill sets. And so if we can apply those, we can really do a lot and we can cover a lot of territory because what may interest one person may not interest another. And so if you're really good at maybe agriculture and those things, maybe that's a committee you want to follow and you want to keep people updated about. If you're knowledgeable about like energy and natural resources, that might be an area you want to pick. And they're having a hearing to examine the implementation of the Land and Water Conservation Fund program. So they're having that. And then Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. That committee is having a hearing to examine whether Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac should be designated as systematically important financial institutions. That could be interesting. And this is all in the Senate, remember. The Commerce, Science, and Transportation has a hearing to examine the use of persuasive technology on internet platforms focusing on optimizing for engagement. Very interesting how that's worded, don't you think? So I'm not sure exactly what it's going to be about. I know that in the House, they're hitting the whole artificial intelligence thing really hard in a lot of their hearings. And so the Senate, this is one for the Senate. And so maybe that's what they're talking about there. Persuasive technology. I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that, but it'd be interesting to find out. And then the Foreign Relations has all of these different things that they're going to be covering. I mean, like they've got, when it says like S727, that's a certain bill that they're referring to. And those are the things that they're going to be dealing with. I mean, they've got, energy partnerships in the Eastern Mediterranean. They have all these different things. They're talking about how they can deal with other countries, and you can see the countries they're working with, Burma and Bangladesh. They're trying to figure out a way to put pressure on those who are not doing a good job at stopping corruption in their government. And so, like some way of balancing out so that we're not just handing money to a bunch of countries that are allowing their governments to continue to be corrupt without trying to stop any of that. So that was one of them there. Here's, how to immediately release unjustly imprisoned journalists, these two journalists here. And I mean, it goes on and on. There's lots of stuff going on. The Chinese telecommunications companies, and even one here with the Kingdom of Spain for the avoidance of double taxation and prevention of fiscal evasion with respect to taxes on income and its protocol. I love these big long titles. Anyway, so updating that, and they talk about double taxation, which is not a good thing, but they're trying to avoid that, and that's what they're working with. And here's one for Japan too that they're working on. I mean, this just goes on. This is really a lot that they're going to be doing, so they're going to be keeping busy on that. And then the Commerce, Science, and Transportation will be dealing with hearings to examine technological innovations in transportation, which could be interesting too. Now, the Intelligence Committee has a hearing, but it's closed. So who knows what that's going to be dealing with, right? Just don't know. Then we go on to Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, hearings to examine unprecedented migration at the United States southern border, focusing on the exploitation of migrants through smuggling, trafficking, and involuntary servitude. The Judiciary, hearings to examine pending nominations, which I think they just passed the one that was a nomination for, I forget the guy's name, but it was for the Ninth Circuit, and both Feinstein and Kamala Harris were like having their heads spin around about it because they weren't happy with the guy. And so, because I think he's a conservative, and they're trying desperately to keep that court, filled with a bunch of liberals. So they're not going to be happy. But such is life, right? Anyway, energy and natural resources. Here's some more for them. And these are like more specific things that they're talking about. I like rehabilitation projects in certain places. And these different bills are listed here that they're going to be dealing with. And so there's that. Commerce, Science, and Transportation on Wednesday, going to have hearings to examine Amtrak, focusing on next steps for passenger rail. That should be kind of interesting to see. I'm not sure what they're going to be talking about with Amtrak. Are they going to be happy with Amtrak, or are they really going to be grilling them? I don't know. I do know, though, that like over in Europe, I spent some time over there, and they have really good rail systems, and you can travel lots of places by rail if you need to, and it's not all that expensive. Whereas here in the United States, I've only been on a couple trains, and it's okay, but it's not near the network that there is over there. So not as many people use it because, we have our cars and we're more tied to that. And I especially live kind of out in the sticks. So cars for us are important because it takes like an hour to get to any place that has a train. So, or at least a train station, I should say. And then this next one is the Foreign Relations Business Meeting to consider pending calendar business. So on the business meetings, I don't think they video those. I don't think those are available to watch, but they're just discussing things that probably they want to put on the calendar in the future. Same thing with the health, education, labor, and pensions. Budget hearings to examine fixing a broken budget and spending process, focusing on securing the nation's fiscal future. Wouldn't that be nice? Balance your budget. Small business and entrepreneurship, they're having hearings on that. Business meeting for the energy and national resources. The judiciary has that meeting. Really, I was under the impression before I got into all of this, I thought that, senators and congressmen, they didn't do all that much. Oh my goodness. I have really changed my idea of what they do because, yeah, they've got committee meetings like all the time. They're hopping from one to the other, and they've got tons of stuff they have to read to keep up with all the committee meetings and the hearings. And, I have a new admiration for them if they're taking the job seriously. Now, some of them, this is in the Senate, so there's a lot more sanity that's reigning in the Senate. But, over in the House, things are a little different, and insanity is rampant there. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So anyway, the judiciary is having this business meeting, and they are to require Federal Trade Commission to study the role of intermediaries in the pharmaceutical supply chain. And again, they're going through some of these different codes that have to do with their particular committee, and the FTC to deter filing of sham citizen petitions to cover an attempt to interfere with approval of a competing generic drug or biosimilar, to foster competition and facilitate the efficient review of petitions filed in good faith to raise legitimate public health concerns. Thought that was kind of interesting, Sometimes it's just the way they word it and everything, but there's more there that they're talking about because they're looking to put in more judges. That's a big thing. Then the Energy and Natural Resources hearings to examine options for the interim and long-term storage of nuclear waste, which could be pretty important, right? Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, an oversight hearing to examine reauthorization of the Export-Import Bank of the United States. I have to tell you, banking and stuff like that kind of goes over my head. It's not something that I've really ever studied much on, so I don't understand a lot of the nuances sometimes when they're talking about it. But there are some of you out there that's kind of your thing. And if it is, go for it. And then, come up with information and let us know what's going on. And, be very interesting to find out from people who know what they're talking about. And if I were doing something on those, I probably wouldn't do a very good job because, like I said, that's just not my area of my strong suit. So, here's one. The judiciary is having an oversight hearing to examine the United States Copyright Office. and also an oversight hearing to examine enforcement of the antitrust laws. So that's what's going on. And you'll notice that it's the whole week's worth here, that they have several. It's kind of interesting, the dates on here, because it goes through, says Thursday, June 27th, and then here it says July 17th and July 23rd. So I guess maybe it was just that those are the only ones that are on the calendar at this point. So it's more than just this week, because the last ones are in July. So that's what's going on in the Senate. And so let's go over to the House. Now, the House is a little bit different because they set it up this way, and you can click on the different dates that they're having hearings and things, and you can see those. And then they put them, kind of lump them together here. So a little bit different how they do it. Now, Monday, not a lot's happening. There's this business meeting, and then this Committee on Rules, I guess, is the one that's hosting that particular meeting. But then you go on here, and Tuesday, there's several things happening. And again, I've bumped it up. Let me see if I can bump it up a little bit more on this page. There. Okay. Because it just needs to be that way. I don't know. At least this one doesn't have the header blocking out half of the thing. Every site is different, and that's what's really kind of weird. I almost wish they were more uniform across the way. There are things I like about some sites over other sites when you're dealing with government sites, but I kind of wish there was more of a standardization throughout them all. It would make it easier to navigate, I think. But pretty much every organization is in charge of their own site, and even with the House of Representatives, every committee is in charge of their own site. So the committee sites are totally different when you go from one to the other. The majority and the minority parties use the same template for the site, but how they put their information on there and what information they include can be really different. So always interesting. Yeah, looking around. But anyway, so this is what's going on in the House of Representatives on Tuesday. This is just on Tuesday. So you've got this managing for soil health, diverse asset managers, okay, reauthorizing vital health programs for American families. Now remember, this is Democrat-led. The Senate was Republican-led. They were focusing on business. Here we're starting to get more of the social justice type things. And that's the way they work with this. Broadband mapping, small carrier perspectives on a path forward, protecting and restoring America's iconic waters, uranium mining, contamination and criticality. Then they have one, identifying, resolving, and preventing vulnerabilities in TSA security operations, artificial intelligence and counterterrorism. As I said, it seems like the House is really pushing this artificial intelligence stuff. They're working on it. They've had a lot of hearings, it seems like, to me. And there's one of them there. This one, learning from whistleblowers at the Department of Veterans Affairs. This one I thought was really interesting. It's called Do No Harm, Examining the Misapplication of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. That one's going to be on what? This is Tuesday? All of this is going to be on? Could be interesting. I might want to watch that one if I can. And the host is the Committee on Education Labor. So I'm interested to see. The title intrigues me. When I clicked on it, there's really nothing that it says. Nothing important. It just says the same thing, that there's going to be that meeting. So I don't know what it's going to be about. And they do have the witnesses listed, but I wasn't familiar with too many of the witnesses. I guess I can look them up before then. But I'd like to watch that one just to see what it's going to be. This next one, cybersecurity challenges for state and local governments. So going on, continuing challenges to the Voting Rights Act. See, again, we're talking from a Democrat perspective. So challenges to the Voting Rights Act. They're desperate to keep it so people can cheat on voting. I mean, really, they want to encourage voter fraud because they don't want any voter ID. And they're desperate to find out some way to label that voter ID law or any voter ID law as being, against this Voting Rights Act. You know, that's what they're looking towards. And that was the whole thing with the consent decree, why the Republicans couldn't challenge voter fraud, because of that whole idea that the Republicans were trying to keep people from voting, and especially minorities. Well, you know, I don't understand the whole concept of why you can't have a voter ID law, because we do in Indiana. When I go to vote, I have to show my driver's license. And if you don't have a driver's license, people can go to the BMV and they can get a free ID. So it costs them nothing. All they have to do is go there, and they probably have to show like their birth certificate or something that proves that they're a citizen so they can vote, you know, so they can get that. But there's no reason why people can't have that voter ID. And actually, in all of the states that have voter ID laws, you can get a free ID. And so that excuse is so lame when they try to say, well, you know, people couldn't get it. Yeah, do you know these people that you're saying can't go get a voter ID are ones that have to show like 10 zillion IDs when they get food stamps? But oh, they can get those, can't they? You know, you got to show a lot of documentation to get food stamps. And so how are they doing that, but they can't turn around and prove that they're a U.S. citizen so they can be eligible to vote? Yeah, makes no sense to me. And of course, it is really just a sham. It's a way for them to maintain the environment so that it can lead to more voting fraud. And that's really what they want to have happen. Chronic wasting disease, the threats to wildlife, public lands, hunting, and health. I feel chronic wasting disease. Today I'm kind of feeling like that. A little on the tired side. I have been all weekend, but I'm working on it. Election security, again, voting technology vulnerabilities. I think that might be an interesting one to watch too, because the technology is really what's going to make the difference. And as long as the technology is iffy, I mean, there are videos on YouTube that you can look for on voting machine fraud. It's very easy to do. And they showed how they could manipulate the numbers. And so, yeah, it's far too easy. Really, it is. The U.S. response to the political crisis in Sudan, and overseeing the fintech revolution, domestic and international perspectives on fintech regulation. Okay, now that's just on Tuesday, right there. That's all there is on Tuesday. Now on Wednesday, we have more. Yeah, here's more on artificial intelligence. There's another one. Societal and ethical implications of artificial intelligence. And these are different committees. If you notice, this is the Committee on Financial Services, and this is the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. So I kind of wonder if there's this memorandum of understanding going on between these people to kind of target this artificial intelligence, because I saw an article earlier today that said that it might even be possible for them to hack into the, you know, presidential emergency text messages, you know, when you get those, that there was all that hullabaloo about. Yeah, that maybe they could even fake that. And so they're desperate to kind of make things into fakes, that they're trying to show that, oh, well, all of these things, you know, that are going to be coming out could be fakes. They could be, yeah. And markup is where they're, you know, going through it and they're saying they need to change this or change that. And it's kind of negotiating different aspects of it. And then this one's going to be the biggie. Violations of the Hatch Act under the Trump administration. Because, yep, they are going to subpoena Kellyanne Conway. And not only her, but they're also going to have that Henry Kerner guy, which I did a video on, in there so they can ask him questions about it too. And that's what they're wanting to do. I don't know what's going to happen with that. It should be interesting, right? So, yeah. And oversight of the U.S. Copyright Office. This one I thought was kind of interesting. Examining social media companies' efforts to counter online terror content and misinformation. That could be interesting. I wonder who, let me look here at who their people are that are going to be there, the witnesses. head of global policy management from Facebook, global senior strategist for public policy Twitter, global director of information policy Google, and this lady who is a professor of law, New York Law School. Could be interesting, yeah, but you know that when they say this to counter misinformation, they're talking about anything that's actually from Republicans. So they want to shut us up before the 2020 election. And I think we're going to see more of a push for that over time. Building a more dynamic economy, the benefits of immigration. Again, remember, this is from a Democrat point of view. Benefits of immigration. Yeah. Well, and nobody is saying that there's not benefits to immigration. What we're saying is you need legal immigration. There are benefits to legal immigration. There are proven problems with illegal immigration. When you have a big portion of illegal immigrants coming into your country, it does cause significant problems. And it also reduces wages and things for the lower class of our workers. So that's something we have to remember too, that it's bad for the American workers, the ones who are really struggling. It's going to hurt them. And so they don't want to deal with that, I'm sure. This one, standing with public servants, protecting the right to organize. I thought that was kind of interesting too. And then, of course, here it is, resolution offered by Chairman Elijah E. Cummings, authorizing the chairman to issue a subpoena to Ms. Kellyanne Conway. Yeah. And crushed by confessions of judgment, the small business story. Full committee markup, legislative hearing on those two bills. Biodefense preparedness and implications of antimicrobial resistance for national security. Interesting. I don't know what FITARA 8.0 is. I don't know that. I'd have to look at it. NASA's aeronautics mission enabling the transformation of aviation. Examining the consequences of the Trump administration's attacks on the Job Corps program. Just the title of it is so negative. Examining the consequences of the Trump administration's attacks. You can just tell what it's going to be about. Transatlantic policy impacts the U.S.-EU trade conflict. Beyond the Million Veterans Program, barriers to precision medicine. Okay. Beyond the Million Veterans Program, barriers to precision medicine. They got that one on there twice. Request for a Department of Homeland Security departmental record on the beneficiary of this bill. And I don't know what that bill is. So something to do with immigration and citizenship. So that is what's going on Wednesday. And then Thursday, and you can see they won't have anything on Friday. Thursday, they have this full committee markup here, and this Intelligence Authorization Act, authorizing all members of the House of Representatives to review this particular thing. And then down here, document production status update, the OPM, FBI, and GSA. So that could be interesting too. So that's what is going on in our Congress this week. As for the Supreme Court, remember they are not doing any hearings. We are just waiting for them to finish up on the discussions and to put out some more rulings. That's what we're waiting on. We're still waiting on the census question. Hasn't come out yet. Not sure what the ruling's going to be. Unless Justice Roberts turns on us again, it should be to support putting that on the census. So, it's citizenship. Why can't you put that on a census? That's the whole point of a census. Anyway, so that's what I've got for you on this one. I'll put the links down below and you can check them out on your own. And, if one of those looks good to you and something that you're interested in, you make sure you check it out and see what's going on. Let us know in the comments. We're all interested and we're all in this together. So it's good if you can share what you're learning with us because no one person can cover it all. So thanks for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.